we've started with, of course, the simple output, diba? The hello world. And this time we are going to work with nested if statement. And like I said, just before I started, there will be two lessons that we're going to discuss today, because these lessons are just relatively short, okay, compared to our previous discussions or lessons. They are much maragtag-as ato mga lessons na to last time. This time, or these lessons that we're going to talk about today, are relatively shorter. So that's why we're going to discuss two topics, and one of them being nested statement, and the other one is the switch statements. So basically, we're still talking about statements because they are still under the conditional statements. All right, diba? As what we've discussed last time or previously, there are different conditional statements. There are different types of conditional statements. One being the if and the else statement, and then another one would be switch. Okay. And then as for the if statement, na ay daghan pa. As for the if statement, there are another way how we can make use of the if-else statement, and that will be the nested if statement. And what exactly that is all about, we're going to discuss it today. So again, there will be two lessons that we're going to discuss today, and by the end of our class, we are going to have a live assessment activity. That means I'm going to present to you an activity, and then you're going to do it on your own right now. Okay? So while you're on the line, you're going to perform, or you're going to work with the activity, and then I'll give you a couple minutes, or perhaps 30 minutes to work for it, and then once the 30 minutes is up, you're going to present your work. Or maybe not, dili man siguro tanan makapresent, but maybe some of you are going to present their work, and then I'm going to grade it right away. Alright? So again, this would be a lain na po niyo pamaagi in checking our assessment, because I just realized that assessment should be done synchronously, diba? And for the past months, we've been doing our assessment activity like after we end the class, I'm going to send you a link, and then you're just going to take it on your own, and it's gonna take you 1 week to finish it. And starting now, there is going to be a little bit change. There is going to be a little change with how we're going to work with our assessment activity. Instead, we are going to do it online. Okay. So if everybody's ready, please be sure to listen attentively, and then if possible, please make sure that your phone is on full screen. That way we'll be able to see the codes properly. And then you can pin my screen as well, diba? I'm not sure if you know, but especially those who are using desktop, there is a way that you can pin a certain user. So to do so, you just have to select, for example, if I wanted to pin Miss Jerem Baldomar, I'm just going to highlight that or hover and then click this pin, and then her screen will automatically be displayed all the time. Okay, so if possible, right now I'm sharing my screen. This is my screen right here. It would be best if you can pin this one so that it will constantly display on your screen. Alright, just a suggestion, but it's up to you how you're going to manage your work or manage your online class. Anyway, let's start. And if you have any questions or clarifications, please save it by the end of the class, or you can also send in your question here in our Google Meet in messages. Okay, so previously we've talked about logical operators. By the way, are you done with your assignments? Okay, that's good. Alright, so it's always best to finish. Okay, make sure to finish it, because today we're going to have another assignment. Matambakan na noon yung assignment, diba? So try to do it as soon as possible. Anyway, today we'll talk about previously we talked about logical operators. We have three logical operators. We have the AND operators, OR operators, and NOT operators. So I'm pretty sure everybody's already familiar with this. It was also a relatively short discussion, diba? Since there are only three operators, and basically the AND will allow us to combine multiple conditions, and then I'm not sure if you can remember, but there was a truth table for the AND operators. Na apoy truth table para sa OR operators and then NOT operators. So let's have a review now. If who would like to answer the truth table for sa AND? Let's say if A is true and B is false, then what would be the truth value? Ano? Sa AND ba? Okay, it's false, alright? Because in the AND operators, both of them must be, or both the condition must be true for the statement to be true. For the OR operators, either one of the condition is true, then the statement is true. Alright, so just try to remember the difference. If we're talking about AND, then the statement will only be true if both the conditions are true. However, sa OR, if bisag usa lang ang true niya, the entire statement will be true. Alright, so that reminds me, let's have a review on our previous lessons. I'm pretty sure everybody's already taken the exam. So, I'm sorry, the assessment activity. So let's have a review before we proceed. This is what I've forgotten last time. The last time, or last meeting, nalimot ko og discuss atong assessment. Okay, so logical operators. So there are only 63 responses. There are a lot of students who wasn't able to take. So it says here that the average is 8.81 over 10, so that means we're ready to proceed. But let's just have a short review before we proceed. So for question number 1, there's actually no number 1 here, but the first question is, it is used to combining two or more. Okay, again, if you wanted to answer, please state your name first and then I'll call you, okay? Number 1, who would like to answer? It is used to combining two or more conditions or constraints or to complement the evaluation of the original condition in consideration. Okay, Pakulanang, go ahead. Pakulanang, go ahead. Okay, logic. Is that a question? Okay. Whenever you answer, make sure that naay conviction na yung answer. Okay, so it is logical operators. All right. Dili nyo i-question. Dili nyo yung logical operators. No. It's okay. It's okay. I'm talking for everybody, in behalf of everybody. Whenever you're going to answer, make sure you have a conviction. All right. But that was correct, Pakulanan. The answer is logical operators. So obviously, we are going to combine two or more conditions, diba? Conditions or constraints to evaluate if the statement is going to be true or not. Okay? All right. Next, who would like to answer? It is a logical okay, Baldosa. It is a logical operation which means true only if all operands are true. And alright, that's correct. Okay, so again, going back in logical operators, the statement will be true only if both the operands or both of the conditions are true. Next, it is a logical operation which means true if at least one of the operands is true. Ramirez, go ahead. Ramirez? Or, okay, that's correct. So, the difference between the and or is that, diba, ang and gainang both of them must be true so that the statement will be true. Sa or, regardless if the rest of the condition is false, so long as naay usa nga true, then the statement is true. Alright? So for example, makasulod ka sa NORSU, for example lang, you will be accepted in NORSU you will be for example, you will be accepted, you will be allowed to travel to, let's say, Cebu City if naakay vaccination card or katong rapid test, di ba? So regardless og unsay naani mo, not necessarily nga dapat naakay rapid test og naakay vaccination card, di ba? Because the statement is or, di ba? So either of these two, if naa ka ng dua, then you will be able to proceed. So same concept with the logical operator. If one of the statement is true, then you'll be able to, or the state, or either of the condition is true, then the statement is true. Okay. So again, just to make it simple, whenever we're going to travel somewhere, if the requirement is makasulod ka sa Cebu kung naa kay rapid test or negative nga or vaccination card, di ba? So it doesn't mean nga dapat naa ka ng dua. It only means that if you have one of those two, di ba? So same thing, if one of the two conditions is true, then the statement is true. All right? And then next, it is a logical operation. Okay, salin. All right? It is a logical operation which means true only if the operand is false. Not. All right. Okay. So this definition does not really murag one-sided ra siya kayo, but the truth is in the not logical operator, meaning if true siya, then the operand will be false. All right? If false ang operand, then the not logical operator is going to be true, and then if it's true, then it's going to be false. Mura bag iyang reverse lang ang iyahang value, truth value. All right, next. Fill in the blank. If A is true and A is false, then A and B is badoy. Okay, so it says here, if A is true, B kasi sayop ako ang dapat B niya. If A is true and then B is false, then A and B is sa tawing answer. Okay, that's false. All right. So again, both of the statement must be true, so that the and logical is going to be true. All right. The next, fill in the blank. If A is false and B is false, tag. Go ahead. False. All right. Same thing. If, di ba ang sa or statement or sa or operator, the statement is going to be true if one of the statement is true. But if both of the statements or both of the condition is false, then it's gonna be false. May gana wala mo galibog sa kay puro A. Dapat A and B dapat na yun. But anyway, I know that nagsabot ra mo ani. Next, fill in the blank. If A is true and B is false, then A or B, petalo na. Go ahead. Petalo na? Huh? True. Alright. Yes, true, because we are talking about the or operator. Next, if A is true and B is true, then A, kinsa to? Alright. Okay. Aros, go ahead, Aros. Alright, that's true. Okay? Good. And then next, if A is false, then not A is? Anyone? Badoy. Mary Dayan Badoy, go ahead. Okay, if A is false, then not A is true. Again, it's just a reverse or the opposite of the original truth value. Next, last. In C++, we often see this in the form of an. J and Badoy, go ahead. Okay, alright, that's it. Okay, so basically, the logical operators can be seen mostly. Actually, it is the only way we can see the koan. No. We often see the logical operators on if-else statement. So if-else statement is very important whenever we are going to do any programs, because there will be lots of other topics about programming that will be used for the if and else statement. All right. So again, as I see here, the summary. You've got a total of 8.81 average points, so that is more than enough for the 75% requirement for us to proceed. So that means everybody will be able to proceed to the next lesson. And again, that will be about nested if statement. So nested if statement. So let's start now. So if you can remember back in when maybe two lessons ago, we learned about these conditional statements, and one of them being the if and else statement, diba? So when you say conditional statement, it is a set of rules performed if a certain condition is met. The if, else if, and else are examples of conditional statement. So just a review. This is how we write, or this is how we write the conditional statement, or basically the syntax of conditional statement. So if we write the if and then the condition. Now, how do we set the condition gani? Unsa lang tong nga classic operator atong gamiton para maka-create the condition? Anyone who can remember? Ha? Unsa lang kay itong nga klase? How do we set condition, di ba? So, when we set condition, how are we going to do it? There is a specific operator that we'll be using. What was it? Yeah, I know. Yes, the if and else statement. But, di ba? This is the syntax. If and then the condition. How do we write the condition? Huh? Okay. Through the use of logical and katong pinakauna nato, logical and katong pinakauna natong gidiscuss, arithmetic operation or operators, right? So basically, since we are trying to compare a certain condition, we'll be using either the relational operators. Give an example of a relational operator, everyone. That is logical, katong and, or how about katong tong relational operators example, to greater than or equal to, less than or equal to. Okay, so those are the relational operators. And for us to create a condition, we have to use either the relational operator or the recent discussion, the logical operator, right? So the if statement will be, to write an if statement, so basically we write if and then the condition, and if this condition is true, this block of codes will be executed. However, if the statement is false, it could be either we can create another condition that will support if the first condition is false, then that would be through the use of else if. So if ang else if na pod ang true, then the expression inside the else if will be executed. However, if all of the conditions are false, then the else will be executed, diba? Alright, so that was the if and else if statement. But in nested if statement, the nested if in programming is placing an if statement inside another if statement. This will allow the program to check the condition inside the condition. This is here is the syntax for nested if statement in C++. So before we discuss the condition or the syntax, let's just think of that when we say nested if, basically it's an if statement inside another if statement. That's the reason why it's called nested, because basically it is being put inside the original if statement. So let's take a look at the example that we have here. Not real example, but let's take a look at how we write the nested if. So going back, so we have if and then condition, but notice that inside our block here, we also see another if statement and then another condition, diba? So we have here if and the else, but this if and else are inside the inside the original if condition. Therefore, this if else statement are considered to be nested, meaning gisulod siya inside the original if. Okay? Diba? How do we describe a nest man daw? Ano? Diba? When we say nest, diba, like a bird, diba? What is inside a nest? Inside a nest is bird itself, diba? So another bird inside the nest of the bird. So just the same concept, the nested if is basically another if statement inside the original if statement. Okay, so when do we use it? We're going to discuss that in just a moment. So basically, dali ra kay siya, di ba? Since we already know how to use the if statement, then adding another condition will be relatively easy as well. So the nested if statement can be placed in either if, else if, or else statement. So again, we can add if statement in either of our, diba? Let's go back. So this is how we write the conditional statement, right? So basically, we can create a nested if statement inside here, or inside here, or inside our else. Okay, so basically depending on the logic of our program, we can create nested ifs either in our first condition or in our else if condition, or even in our else. Alright, so let's try to analyze how the nested if works through our flowchart. So let's say, for example, this is a continuation of a, I'm not sure if you can see it, so again, make sure nga naka full screen mo, because I'm not sure if mabasa niyo ang, mabasa ba? Alright, okay, just in case if dili, make sure that you're on full screen. So let's try to analyze how the if statement works. So let's say we have a condition. So this is our first if. This is the condition. Is the condition true or false? Diba? That is the decision making. So if it's true, then we can create another statement and a nested if. So if the condition is true, then we can create another statement to support, basically to do a follow-up question if the condition is true. Alright? So for example, maingon ka nga, ang first nga condition is, are you a student? Then yes or no ang question. Now, if yes, then unsa na ka nga year? So, katong follow-up nga question, di ba, ang unang question is, are you a student? Di ba, yes or no? So, if you say yes, you can create another follow-up question that will only be applied if the person says yes. Di ba? So, again, the question is, are you a student? If yes, then what year are you in? Di ba? So, basically, I'm sorry, let me clarify that. So, to create a nested, let's say, nested if out of those scenarios, diba, the first if or the first condition is you are student or not. So, if you're student, yes, then we can create another a nested if na pod, nested condition, which is that will only be applied if the student or if the person is a student. So, again, the first question is, are you a student? And then the nested if is, if yes, then are you first year, or are you second year, are you third year, are you fourth year, diba? Again, the question nga, are you first year, are you second year, are you third year, will only be given or will only be asked if ni answer ang student nga student siya. Do you follow? Diba mo na siya follow-up question or the follow-up condition to the first condition. So again, for example, again, going back to our example, if moingon ka nga, are you a student? Then if mo answer siya nga yes, then mo ask na po siya, are you first year, are you second year, so on and so forth. The questions, are you first year or are you second year, will only be asked if ni answer ang person nga student siya. If niingon siya nga no, then dili na siya kinahanglang i-ask. Alright? So that is the concept of nested if. Do you follow, guys? Okay. Alright, so let's have an example of a nested if statement. So the nested if statement will only be executed if the first statement remains true. Again, just like what I've said a while ago, the follow-up question or the follow-up condition will only be executed if the first statement or the first condition remains true. So let's see here. So we have a variable number which has 5 nga value, and then here in our case, it says here that if num1 is greater than 1, then it will say num1 is a positive integer. So let's check. Since our number is 5, is this condition true? 5 is greater than 1? Yes, so therefore the if statement is going to be executed, right? Hold on, nalobat ang headset. Wala na ako na-charge. Okay. Alright. So since this condition is true, therefore the if statement is going to be accepted. Now, how are we going to create a nested if out of this condition? So let's take a look at the right side. So again, same thing, our number is 5, and then the first condition is if 5 is greater than 1, then this statement is true, diba? So since this statement is true, we can create another if statement inside of it. So that means whenever, and then for example here it says num which is 5 is a positive integer. That is true because 5 is greater than 1. However, we can also set here that if the number is less than 10, it will display number which is 5 is a 1-digit number. So let's check, is since we have here a condition nga ang number is less than 10, is 5 less than 10? Is it true or false? True. So therefore, we know that this statement will be executed only if this is still true. Diba? Since 5 is less than 10, so this is true. But although this is true, this will only be executed if if the first condition is true. However, if false initial, let's say we will write 0. We will write 0 in here. So it's already false. Then therefore, there will be no need to dili na ma-execute ang atong if statement. It will automatically proceed to our else. Okay? So let's try to recreate that using our dev C++. Alright, let's just create a new project. Okay, let's call it nested if. Let me add 3. Okay, so using namespace, std, int main. Alright, again we'll create a program that will just to get a general idea of a nested if statement. So we have here an int num, and let's set it to, let's say, 5. And then first is we're going to create our first condition. Yeah, if it's going to be, let's say, 5 and above, it's going to display an integer, 1-digit number, something like that. So let's just try. So let's set our first condition. So if rather, and then the condition is if num is greater than 0, that means that means 1 and above, then this statement will be executed. So it will say cout num is a positive integer. Alright, and then for us to create a nested if, let's say every time that we're going to enter a number which is greater than 1, it will display how many digits does it have. Alright, so let's create another nested if, and then another condition that says if num is less than 10, then it will display cout num is a alright, and then else nalasa else cout you have entered 0. Alright, let's check. So basically at first this condition will Alright. Okay, thank you. Thank you. All right. Okay, let's analyze our program. So the first is the if statement is going to be checked whether or not that it is true or false. So since our number here is 5 and it says here num is greater than 0, do you think it is true or false? True. So since this is true, it will say here that the 5 is a positive integer. It will display that. However, we've created another if statement that is inside, that will only be accepted, that will only be executed if this is true, that it will say if we enter a number which is although greater than 0 but less than 10, then it will display it is a 2-digit number, or 1-digit already. 1-digit number. Alright, so let's try that. Let's execute, compile and run. Alright, let me add let me add an end line para maklaro. Okay, so it says here that 5 is a positive integer, so that is given in our if statement. And since we enter a number which is less than 10, it will also add another text that says 5 is a 1-digit number, just like this, right? So this one is executed through the first if statement, and then the other one, which is that says 5 is a 1-digit number, is executed through our nested if statement. All right. So what if we enter any other number, let's say greater than 0, but kaning part is false na? So let's check. Let's try to change it to, let's say, 11. If it's going to be 11, so we have here our first condition that says num is greater than 0. Is it true or false? True. Alright? Alright. So obviously this will be executed. Diba? However, since we have another if statement inside our first if statement, it says here that num is less than 10. Is it true or false? False na. Alright? But although this is false, but since the statement is true, then whatever it is that is inside our if statement is going to be executed. However, it so happened that on our nested if, since it's no longer true, then it will not be executed. Unsa siguro yung ma-execute lang if we're going to run it? Okay. We are expecting kanilang ang iyang mo execute. Alright, so let's try that. So let's save, execute, compile and run. So it says here, it only displays 11 is a positive integer. Okay, so basically we've already created an if statement inside our if statement. Now, what if we wanted to create an else, diba? Else, for example, if the nested if is false, then it will execute another thing. So obviously, still we can create another else, and then let's say cout num, let's say you've entered more than 1-digit number. Alright, so for example, if we're going to enter a number which is more than, that makes this false. So for example, since this is false because since 11 is not less than 10, so we're expecting that it will also execute this message. Aside from this, it will also execute this that says you've entered more than 1-digit number. So let's save that. Let's compile and run. So here we have 11 is a positive integer because kani, and then since our nested condition is false, then it will execute this code that says you have entered more than 1 digit. Right? Do you follow with the nested statement? Alright. Okay, so let's create another program that will display if a person is a child, a teen, or an adult. Alright, so basically if we're going to let's kuan atong subton unsa lang day ang child, teen, and adult. So when we say the program will display child if age is 13. I'm sorry. Below 12 and below, it will display a child, diba? 12 and below, and then if it's 13 to 19, it will display a teen, and then if 20 and above, it will display an adult. All right. So let's try to create that program, and then we'll discuss it. So let's erase all of this. So let's have int age. Okay, and then let's see here. So again, if age is great, saan man nato na eh? Okay, if age is greater than or equals to 13, diba? Since 0 to 12 is child, then 13 to 19 is teen, and then 20 and above is adult. So first is let's create a condition that says if the age is greater than or equals to 13, then it will say okay, so if greater than or equals to 13, so however there are two possible answer, diba, na ay pwede siyang may mong adult, pwede siyang teen, because for example if 20 and above, so that's already considered adult. So that's the time that we can create a nested if statement. So again, this nested if statement will only be accepted if this first condition is true. So here let's create another nested if, and then we're going to create a condition that if the age is greater than or equals to 19, age is greater than or equals to 20 na lang, 20, it will display adult. Else sakto ba? Alright, so again on our first condition, it says here that if the age is 13, so for example we've entered 18, so this is 18 greater than or equals to 20 to 13. Okay, let me write it here. 18, for example, 18. So the age is 18. And our first condition, age is greater than or equals to 13. True. So therefore, since this is true, then we have another statement inside our first statement. So if the age is greater than or equals to 20, is it true or false? False. So therefore, this will not be executed, but instead it will execute 10, diba? Since we've entered 18. So that is on our, so we already have our first condition, diba? And then we can create another condition here. So else it will say child, and then return 0. So let's analyze. But there are different ways. There are different ways on how we can make our program display if the age that is entered is child, a teen, or an adult. But this would be perhaps one of the best way on how we can make use of the nested if. Okay, but there are different ways on how you're going to do it. But here using nested if, we can do it this way. So again, the age is 18. So let's check. Since 18 is greater than or equals to 13, so therefore we know that the if statement is going to be executed, right? However, inside the if, naa siya additional nga condition. So if the age that we've entered is greater than or equals to 20, it will say adult. But if we've entered, let's say, less than 20, then it will say teen. Alright? However, if the age that we've entered is less than 13 na siya, then it will say child. Alright, so the logic is still there. We know that from 0 to 12, it will display child. From 13 to 19, it will display teen, and then 20 and above, it will display adult. So let's check. Let's save that. Let's execute, compile, and run. So it says here, it's teen. Do you follow? Alright, so let's check. Let's set it to 11. Let's save that. And then let's compile and run. Oops. Na-rebuild man una ako. Lugar ba ni mahumaning build? My apologies. Save ang na-click. Alright, execute, compile and run. Alright, so since we've entered a 11, so let's analyze our conditions. So is 11 greater than or equals to 13? False. Okay, kabantay mo, since false na siya, wala na siya ni ask here. Wala na siya ni ask sa atong nested if, because since the condition is already false, then it will automatically jump to our else. So that's why since 11, automatic na siyang ni-jump sa else nga statement which says child. Okay? That's it. Right, let's proceed. So let's try to analyze our program. So the age given is 18. On our first condition, the if statement checks if the condition is true. That means if age is greater than or equals to 13. If it's true, then the nested if statement checks again if the age is greater than 18, then it will display adult. But if we've entered any number which is greater than 13 but less than 18, it will display teen. And then, or else if all the statement is, or all the conditions are false, and it will say child. Meaning, obviously, if we've entered numbers from 0 to 12. So, it will, again, daghan kayong pamaagi on how we can perform, how we can create the program, but this would be one of the best way on how we can make use of the nested if statement. Alright, so this time we're going to create another program. This time we're going to it's going to output the different stages of adulthood. So okay, so let's set first our ages. So from 0 to 1, if 0 to 1 ang atong enter, it will display infant. If it's 2 to 5, it will display child, 2 to 5. And then if it's gonna be, 0 to 1, that is infant, and then 2 to 4, that is toddler. If 5 to 12, it will display child. And if it's 20 to 39, that is early adulthood. And then 59 and above, 59 to 60, it will display middle age. 40 to 59, it will display middle age adult. And then 60 and above, it will display late or senior age adult. So let me write it down on a notepad para dito maglibog. Notepad. So again, here's our program. Here's how we're going to do our program. So if 0 to 1, it will display infant. If ang age is 2 to 4, it will display toddler. If it's 5 to 12, it will display child. If 13 to 13 to 19, 20 na lang, 20. 13 to 20 is, it will say early adult. Oh ba? Dili pa sayo pa di ay. 19 dahil sakto 19. It will teen. And then 20 to 39. Let's just use our program. So if we say 20 to 39, it will say early adult. And if it's 40 to 59, that is middle age. Dayon, if 60 and above, it will say late or senior age, late or senior age adult. So let's review. Okay, so we're going to create a program using the nested if statement, and then it will display the following, diba? So if 0 to 1, it will display infant. If 2 to 4, toddler. If 5 to 12, it will say child. If 13 to 19, it will display teen. If 20 to 39, early age adult. 40 to 59, middle age adult. And if 60 and above, it will display late or senior age adult. Alright, so again, there will be lots of ways on how we can create this program. We can create this program using katong if else ra, wala na ilain. But again, for us to demonstrate the use of nested if, we're going to use nested if to create this program. So let's open up our dev C++ again. Let's erase that, and then let's start. So first is we're going to set a condition if age is let's start sa pinakataas siguro. So let's start for the adult. Let's start with the group of adult ages. And sa itong mga adult ages nato, we have 20 to 60, di ba? 20 and above. So 20 to 29, it will say early age adult. For 40 and 59, middle age. 60 and above, it will say senior age adult. So let's start from the adult. Dev C++. Okay. So if age is greater than or equals to 20, alright, because 60 is still greater than 20, diba? So first is we'll create, since there are 3 types of adults na ay early age, middle age, or senior age, then let's create a nested if. So first, let's create a nested if for the conditions. If age is less than or equals to 39, that is early age adult. So we will say cout early age adult, and then else if age is middle age adult, so meaning from 40 to 59, diba? So if age is greater than or equals to less than or equals to 59, that means from 40, diba? Since 39 mata niyo nung last time, so sunod is 40. So 40 to 59, it will display middle age adult. Alright, else, meaning if we're going to enter a number which is more than 60, it will display late senior age adult. Do you still follow, guys? Let's check. So this is still on the adult part, okay? So we know that there are 3, based on our conditions that we set, base here, natay 3 types of adults. So from early age, middle age, and senior age. So obviously, we can combine all of those in just one nested if, or we can combine those using nested if. So first is we're going to look for the most common nila. So we know that these ages start from 20. Diba? Start from 20. So let's create our first condition that if we enter a number which is greater than or equals to 20, then it will check the remaining nested if. So for example, if we've entered, let's say 35, okay? So asa siguro siya mabilong? The program will check first on the first if statement. It says here, so we know that 35 is greater than 20, so therefore we can expect that this will be executed. Now, asa anin tulo ang iyang i-execute? That's the question. All right. So first, it's going to ask our first nested if: is age less than or equals to 39? So true, since 35. So therefore, we know that this will be executed. So if we enter 35, it will display early age adult. What if let's change it to, let's say 45? Okay, so let's check. Is this statement true? Less than or equals to 39? False na siya. So it will proceed to the next nested statement, which is the else if. It says here, age is less than or equals to 59. Is it true? True. So therefore, this will be executed instead. Diba? What if we enter 65? So we know that this is going to be false, this is going to be false, therefore it will execute our else statement that says late senior age adult. Diba? Alright. Okay, so however, we know that this will be executed if the age is 65. However, if let's say 15, let's check. Is 15 greater than or equals to 20? False. Alright? So since false siya, do you think this will be checked again? Di na, mulaktaw na siya. Alright? So let's proceed to our else if. So since the state or the condition is false, let's create another statement. This time, we're going to write it for child and teen. So else if is age is greater than or equals to greater than or equals to 5. That means from 5 to asa takutob dire 20. So therefore from 5 to 19, diba? It will display here. So since we know that there is going to be there will be two ages for 5 to 19, atay child and teen, diba? So we're going to create another nested if na pod. So if it's going to be age is less than or equals to 12. 12 ra kay sakto ba tong condition? 12 man, okay, di ba? 5 to 12. So we know that 5 to 12 it will display unsa siguro? Child. All right? However, if it's gonna be 12 and above, 12 to 19, it will display teen. Okay? See out teen. Alright? So let's check. If we entered 15, now it's going to check this. Is 15 greater than or equals to 5? That's true, right? True. So next is it will check our nested if. Is 15 less than or equals to 12? False. So therefore, iyan na ning laktawan, mo proceed siya sa else. Iyang i-run ang else. Okay? So lastly, we'll check our last nga condition, which is kung 0 to 1 infant and then 2 to 4 it will say toddler. So let's write another else if statement. And then the condition is if we've entered a number or an age which is greater than or equals to 0, but only up to 2, diba? 0 to 1 infant and 2 to 4 rather is toddler. So if it's 0 to 1, then it will say if the age is less than or equals to 1, that means 0 to 1, it will display infant. Or else, if it's more than 1, that means from 2 to 4, it will display see out toddler. Ana. Alright? And then return 0. Wala man ko ilay butang para sa atong else, pinakalas nga else. So either we can write here an else na bisag unsa na lang. I'm not sure if there are any other words we can write for our else, so let's just leave it blank na lang. Diba? Kay if, else if, and then we should have some kind of else. Pero since na-cover man tanan yung numbers, wala na siya since we've already covered all the conditions, so we'll just leave it blank. So let's save that, and then let's execute compile and run. Oops. If age is inside error message. Tesa, unsay error message? execute. Sa error niya ha. Sakto man ni else if let's check execute compile and run. Expected kuno niya sakto man gibutang man nato na. All right, it's okay. I think that we are not going to use else inside a nested if siguro. Let's check. So let's remove let's not use else if. I haven't really tried this before, but let's try. So instead of using else, diba? Sa atong nested if, let's try to if and then age 60 and above. So is greater than or equals to greater than or equals to 60, it will display and then here let's say 13 to 19. So else if age is less than or equals to 19. Let me check guys, okay? Else if age is less than or equals to 4. Okay, let's just remove this. Hold on, let me check the error. Anong na may error ni? Kari di ay. Walay pares asa din ni. Alright, kulang pa di ay og usa ka kana. Okay, muna daghan na kaitang okay, dara. Hold on, let me check. So our first bracket, ang iyang close is this. Next, kani ang iyang close is this. Kana. Tara, sakpan. Okay. Alright, naglibor ko sa brackets. Anyway, let's analyze our program. So the age is 15. So again, we have here a first condition that if the age is greater than or equals to 20, then this will be executed. Now, as for these codes, we have here if the number is more than or less than or equals to 39, it will display early age adult. If it's less than or equals to 59, it will display middle age adult. If it's greater than 60, it will display senior age adult. However, if we've entered the age is greater than or equals to 5, so that means from 5 to 19, first is it's going to check whether the age is less than 12, then it will say child. And then if it's less than or equals to 19, it will say teen. And then another else if age is greater than or equals to 0, then it will say infant, but if it's less than 4, it will say toddler. So the error, katong mga error messages atong nakita, it's because of the brackets. So try to keep up with the brackets. Make sure nga pirming kapares ang yung brackets all the way down until on the very last part of your program. So let's execute. Here, since the age that we entered is 15, it will display teen, right? However, if it's gonna be, let's change the age. Let's say 1. Let's save that. Let's compile and run. Then it will say infant, diba? And then let's. How about if we're going to enter 3? Then it will say, let's check our program. Yes, indeed, it says here toddler. And then if it's, let's say 11, okay, compile and run. Then yes, indeed, it says child. And then let's say 13. Then it will say teen. And then how about 25? Oops, 125. Gulangan na. Compile and run. Early age adult. And then let's say 49. Middle age, that's right. And then if it's gonna be, let's say 75, then it will say, okay, sa lobat na akong mouse. Okay, touchpad na lang ta. Alright, we'll say late or senior age adult. Alright, so do you follow with the program? How did we create our program? So let's review. Giyon sa nato pag-create ang program is first atong gigroup ang ato ang, let's say, ang adults. So we've created our first if statement here. So we started with if age is greater than or equals to 20, so automatic nga kani sila tanan will be true, right? However, for us to create a nested if, we've created separate nested ifs for each of the groups. So if inside our first condition, we created another condition that if the age is 20 to 39, it will display early age adult. Same thing for 40 to 59, and then 60 and above. So by creating another condition inside our first condition, we've created the nested if. Same thing for our infant and toddler, and then child and teen. Okay? So I know it's since we already have an idea on how to create conditional statement, just basically we're just going to add another if statement inside our if statement, and then we'll be able to create a program. So there's one thing that we've realized though. So if we are creating multiple nested ifs, we are no longer going to add, katong una na kong error is we're no longer required to use else. The only time that we're going to use else if katong sa pinakalas na. So that is what I've just realized just today. Abi na kung pwede tamo create another if, another else inside our if statement. So therefore, the else will we only have if and else if for our nested if conditions. Okay? Do you have any questions? All right. So it's already been 1 hour. So that is una pinakauna nato nga discussion. Again, this is just 1 hour, so let's proceed to our next topic. Okay, are you free? Anyway, I've already informed you about that. So since we are required to do 5 hours a week, so we're just going to extend just maybe 1 hour more for our next topic. Would that be okay? Of course. All right. So for your assignment for the first topic, so basically there will be 2 assignments. So for the first one, you're going to create a C++ program that will greet a person according to time, their name, and gender. Use nested if, else statements. Refer to the following condition. Okay. So here we have these are our first conditions. So if the gender is male and female, diba? So for example, the gender is male, then the nested if would be if it's morning, afternoon, and evening. So if it's morning, it will say good morning, sir, and then enter the name. And then if it's afternoon, it will say good afternoon, sir, since this is still male. and then if it's evening, it will say good evening, sir. Okay, so we know that this is our first condition, and here are the nested ifs conditions, this nested condition inside this. Diba? Nakuha nyo? However, if it's female, so this is the else if, our original else if, it will say good morning if it's time is morning, and then afternoon and evening. So since you already know how to create katong good morning inana, because we've already discussed that last time using time management, diba? Using creating programs using C++ program, creating C++ program using time, diba? So basically you'll be using military hour, like let's say pag alas 5 sa hapon is 1700. So nakainom pa mana ng activity nato last time. Alright, so basically using your knowledge, applying your knowledge with that, the conditional statement, you're going to create an nested if statement that will perform this following, that will perform this that will perform this output according to the time, the name, and the gender. So meaning, first, you'll be using the user input and output. So basically, first is you're going to enter the name of the person, and then if unsa iyang age, unsa iyang gender, by ba siya or laki, and then after na ni-accept na ang gender, you're going to enter the time, and then based on the gender nga gi-input o ang time, it will display the following output. So just a clue, we know that the male and the gender is going to be our first if, the first condition. So we have here male, that is our first if, and then female, our first else if. Then inside male, we have here nested ifs. We have the time. So if it's morning, afternoon, and evening. Okay. So deadline is going to be 7 days from now, Thursday, December 9, 2021. So for this activity, for this lesson, I will not give you an assessment, just work on the assignment. However, on our next topic, so are you ready for our next topic, guys? Before we proceed, do you have any questions regarding nested if? How about the rest? Alright, so let me close this and let me open up the next topic. So again, dali ra siya kaayo, gi-complicate ra nako ang pag-discuss, but in reality,